You are listening to the Figuring It Out Finance Podcast, episode 109. My name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am your host as always. And I'm going to be talking a little bit today about the book Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell and one of the lessons I learned from that book. So if you've never listened to this podcast before, I am documenting my journey in real estate and business while also talking a little bit about travel hacking and personal finance. So you can find me everywhere at figuringitoutfinance.com, where you're going to find all the links to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can also go follow me on Instagram and TikTok, where you can see where I post daily about what I'm doing, what I'm learning, and everything about me. So go check those out. And going to be exciting. So actually doing my first podcast interview for this show tomorrow and talk to a couple other podcast people. So hopefully being able to get them on, talk about their field and their niche, and be able to start building this podcast a little bit more and bringing a little bit more value. So thank you for tuning in, and let's hop in to the show here. So if you haven't read Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, it's a great book. So I initially didn't want to read this book because I saw the title, Buy Back Your Time, and I'm thinking, well, that's really only for business owners or, people who are 40 and 50 and looking to get their time back after working. And then, I would say a month or two ago, my mindset shifted and I'm like, I need this book right now because I listened to Dan Martell on another podcast, and I'm like, I should maybe look back into that and maybe reading that book. And so I ordered it, and I'm like, all right, let's just read it. So the mindset shift happened when I realized that I don't have to wait until I'm 40 and 50 to learn, or till I have a big business, to be able to learn how to buy back my time, because he's going to be able to give you the tips and tricks to be able to save your time from the beginning and learn how to hire, learn how to build that business around your lifestyle rather than build your lifestyle around your business. So when I heard him talking about it on the podcast, I'm like, all right, let's read it. Let's see what it's about. And I absolutely devoured this book. I read it really, really quick. And it's going to be one I read again here in the near future. And I actually keep it pretty close to me because I use some of the tips and tricks that he's using or telling in that book on how to hire, what's your first hire, how to set up your email. So the first one is going to be how to set up your email. So one of the things that he talks about in the book is being able to get organized and then what your first hire is going to be. So everybody tells me, anybody who I've ever asked before has said, hey, your first hire is figure out what you hate and hire it out. It's like, okay, well, to me that seemed really, really broad. That's just kind of, I don't even know how to interpret that sometimes. It's like, well, I don't like a lot of things about this. But Dan Martell, he said in his book, the first thing you're going to be able to hire out is get an administrative assistant. So this is going to be that person that manages your inbox and basically going from there, doing a bunch of administrative duties to where you can get good at hiring out those little things. Get back a little bit of your time in your emails and then start figuring out where to, what to offload on them a little bit more. So that was something, and also how to set up your email so that it's easier to bring in a virtual assistant or somebody to be able to then go and manage your inbox. So that was the first thing I implemented. As soon as I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I have to do it right now. So being able to set up your inbox, he said, make sure you go to the labels and then do an exclamation mark with your name. And then it's going to be going down the list of where you need to be organizing your emails or what your virtual assistant or administrative assistant can do to be able to organize them for you, because they can be the ones that, respond to some of the emails. The Hard Money team is going to have the same questions for me just about every single time. And then if they don't know how to respond to then they can put it in one of these categories that I'm going to mention that I can go in and respond to. So he recommends starting out with an exclamation point in your name, saying those are the only ones you're going to be able to respond to. And then all the other ones are going to be going to respond. So it's 1-to respond because that's going to show up at the top of your email list under the exclamation point. Then 2 is going to be review. 3 is responded, 4 is waiting on, and then I did a little bit of a different thing, just, a little bit more specific to what I do in my business. So I put next on 5 is bills to pay, and then 6 is going to be the receipts and financials to be able to break those up a little bit. 7 for me is going to be offers and term sheets. 8 is going to be current projects. And then 9 is completed projects. So all the projects are going under one of those specific files to where I can move them around once they get completed. So that's how I set it up for my real estate business. And that seems to, or what I'm doing right now is kind of playing around with moving those in as if I was the administrative assistant. And then I'm going to be able to have those notes on it and, figure out like, when I actually have somebody in there, it's going to be a little bit of a smoother process than trying to figure out where all these emails are, what the flow is, because I can show them exactly how those emails would flow. So moving on to number 2, but how to hire was probably one of the biggest one, is because if you're doing all of these different or working in all these different areas, then you're spending a lot of time on low wage activities. So that's just in his book. I don't know if it's word for word, but it's basically like you value your time on a $10 an hour scale, where you can have a virtual assistant, and one I've actually interviewed, she can do this work for $6 an hour. So in my business specifically, this first hire is going to be an administrative assistant once we get one of these houses sold, just because we're going to be able to grow with them. And we're going to be able to say, hey, we don't have a lot going on right now, but we actually, me and my business partner are getting ready to ramp this up to where we're going to have a lot of emails coming in, a lot of business going on. So it's going to be easier to implement or with somebody already on the team who knows me, knows my inbox and how I want things done, so that as we're growing, as we have more volume, it's easier to handle than trying to backtrack and take the time out of a busy work schedule and basically do what I'm trying to do now. So I might as well prepare, because you don't fall to the level of your goals and standards, you fall to the level of your preparation. So that's the best way to be able to analyze this is I better be prepared to run a business that's doing $1 million. And, I don't have to have all those boxes checked off, but it's better to set yourself up to do that volume than try and play catch up. So that's what we're doing right now. We have a couple projects going on in the beginning of the year. When I read 10x is easier than 2x, I changed a lot of what I was doing to be able to handle a little bit more volume and say, okay, well, I'm not, just looking at offering on 1 or 2 properties. It's like we're going to have 10 to 15 offers out, hopefully per week, that we're going to be able to maybe close on or eventually end up wholesaling. So it's like, all right, how do I build this spreadsheet out to where we could look at 100 houses all in this one? It's neatly organized. And that way, we're set up to do 100 this year rather than trying to do just 1 or 2. So buying back your time is going to lead right into that, because that's something an administrative assistant is going to be able to really help me with, because they're going to start by managing that inbox. And then since we're only buying about 1 a month at this time in February, but looking to ramp that up. But since we're just doing that on a small scale, we're able to walk that virtual assistant through those steps, make sure, they're figuring out how to turn on utilities, They're communicating back with the hard money team, signing up for our insurance, because those are all little things I don't enjoy doing. And having a virtual assistant be able to take over those small things that, just kind of take up time is going to be a big help. So that is the way my business is going, and I'm trying to set it up for that 10x vision. And then being able to implement Dan Martell's buy back your time strategies into it is going to be able to help this business grow a lot bigger. So once we kind of hit that hockey stick, we're only going to go up. So super excited for what we got going on and, where our business can go this year. So stay tuned for that. And this is going to be all for this episode, but make sure you tune in on Friday, because we're going to be interviewing an actual hard money lender, breaking down what is hard money and a little bit about Matt's business. So make sure you tune in for that, and I will see you on Friday. This is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off for the Figuring It Out Finance podcast.